Wow. I'm getting Andrew's slot. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew's not here this week, so
He's taking
So
vacation.
yeah.
I'll do my best to play Andrew. Let me get my bank statement up on my screen before I share.
Okay. But right at boom.
Yeah.
So, Jim, let's start with you. Any wins of the week?
Yes, matter of fact. So yesterday we got a very pleasant email from one of our very new partners out of the New York area. Met him at Flow, the Roost conference down in Tampa in June. And he was so excited about SaaS Alerts and specifically the onboarding that he went through to get on the platform. And it's a huge win because he took the onboarding so seriously, he and his team, and it's paying off huge dividends for them. And they're super excited about the partnership. So it's always great for when someone takes time out of their day to write a very thoughtful email about their feedback. So a lot of people like to complain when things aren't going wrong, and that's fine. We want to hear when things aren't right. Um, but it's also it's fantastic when someone has an awesome experience and they take the time to share it.
That's great. Any wins of the week from the MSP representatives here on the call?
I will tell you, as long as we were using SaaS Alerts with your managed account SaaS Alerts piece, it's a lot less thought process on our part. We just add customers and add licenses. So
And
that's
then
nice.
Ben's team takes over and does your configuration.
That's right.
So do you think it's worth the fee we're charging, Andy, or should we be raising that?
I'm sorry. No, you should not raise the fee. I think that you are just getting your feet wet and,
You're locked in. Don't worry. You're locked in, Andy.
It's eager to see what they can do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ben, if there's no wins of the week from the partners that are on the call, what do you have to share with us? I mean, you and I talk early in the week, so why don't you share just the metrics on the kinds of things that the MSA team is seeing, and if there's anything in particularly new that you guys have unraveled.
Mostly the token theft coming out, I believe it's Arizona, one of their data centers out there. We've had several rules that have been very effective in detecting that, and our guys are spent a good portion of Thursday and Friday blocking accounts from true positives in that area. So it's been a very active campaign. So,
And what's the data center in Arizona? It's obviously not Microsoft. It's somebody else, or is it Microsoft?
no, it's a global something. I can find the article and post it, but it's been out there for about a month or so, but it's really like it ticked up pretty hardcore last week.
So would you describe that as a new group of hackers have found a new infrastructure provider that they're leveraging, and this is sort of just the latest move kind of thing?
I think it's that, and also it's not Evil Gen X because it doesn't have the same kind of uh, I guess indicators, and so it's a different kind of software that's being used. And I posted an article in our chat as well, and the particular user agent string, as well as a couple of other factors in our rules, have really helped us narrow down because it's a common user agent for different software. I think even LionGuard uses it, but when we combine it with a couple of other different variables, it's able to be very effective. And the funny thing is it will show up often as a failed login attempt. So it won't show up as a kind of a successful one, but from what we've seen, the successful login attempt it usually follows pretty quickly afterwards.
So are you going to templatize this, Ben, and share it with the general community of partners who use Respond?
Yeah, it's on the Discord server right now.
There you go. Is everybody, just a quick poll, Amy, maybe you don't have to do it formally, but I'd be interested if people just chime in the in our chat. Is everybody here actually connected to and interacting with the Discord group? So you can just pile that into the chat with a yes or no. So Amy,
Lots of yes coming
I know we
in.
have both Amanda on the docket here and Adam.
Yep.
Who's next on our agenda? Since I don't have the actual agenda right in front of me, I'm doing it from memory.
I think it's me, just because I wanted to share one quick update for an event that we're doing with Channel Program. You guys know that we are big Channel Program partners. It's where we host all of our partner brandable marketing material, anything that you need to help sell your SaaS security services, you can find there. They're doing an all-stars event, and Ryan Riccardi here, our CRO, will be doing a session. So if you're interested in joining, they've got a big lineup of speakers. I'm going to share the link. We emailed it out last week, but I know not everyone gets or sees or reads the emails that I sent, which is okay. So sharing it here, the links in the chat. If you guys want to join in, you can see the full lineup there. I think Ryan is speaking around 11:30-ish, maybe. And that's it. And then I'll also, Ben, can you share the link, the Discord link, so that some of the folks who are not part of it yet can join?
Sure.
All right.
If David doesn't beat me to it.
And that's all from marketing this week. So then I do think we move on to Amanda. I see that Andy's hand is up, though.
I had a question. So Ben, your service is finding these threats and immediately acting on them, and you communicate through the Discord server these templates. How can partners know when there's something really kicking up, and like a heat map or something?
That's a good question. I don't think we have anything like that currently.
Because this token harvesting is huge, and I think this is a really strong case for why you'd want your account managed by SaaS Alerts. But for those that aren't, you're making these templates available, and they don't understand that there's an impact that could be immediately felt by implementing this template because it is currently active and in the wild and being exploited.
Yeah, I think that's why most people end up going to our service, is because of not having the bandwidth to keep up with emerging threats and adapt to them. So that's something that we can provide, but we don't want to hide anything. We definitely want to give everybody that's managing it themselves the availability to do that.
Yeah, this is the EPSS model for CVSS, right? Or CVEs. You're saying these are exploitable right now. I'm just trying to make that really clear to everybody out here that listens to this, that your service is valuable.
Andy, you're nibbling around a point that maybe it's worth making. We've made it before on this call, but there are always new people who join, and maybe the primary purpose of us creating the managed SaaS Alerts offering, in addition to taking some of the workload off of our partners to configure and stay up with new configuration changes in both Fortify and Respond, it was our goal to take really what amounted to our most aggressive both trainer and Respond user, which is Ben, and utilize his skills to train a team internally that can spend the time to look at all the data that's coming across, and find new trends in it and look for new things that we can act upon on MSP participants' behalf, but B, then share out to the broader community. And that we're not even a month in, and it seems to already be a very effective strategy.
I'm happy.
Here we go. Okay, so Amanda, are you up next?
Yep. So I just have a quick update for everybody. Jesse from our support team has put in the effort to update the SIS framework. So I'll share my screen real quick so everybody has a perspective of what I'm talking about. For each of the recommended actions in Fortify, we have mapped them to CIS and NIST for right now as the frameworks. And so right now, the CIS framework has been updated to version 8. This is in our dev. It's going through our cycle, and it will be published to production shortly. So just so everyone knows, version 8 will be out soon. That's it, Chip.
Thanks, Amanda.
Any questions for Amanda on that? Before we move on, I just want to make sure we answer any questions people have on that.
I was just going to chime in about the rule templates and the managed SaaS alerts. If there are, we like to check for things coming up that are recommended and try to make sure that our rules are aligning with what you have in the templates, which are the best examples sometimes. But for if there are kind of new detections, that's something that we'll be looking hopefully for the managed SaaS alerts to for sure be coming up with that stuff. But if there are good ones, surfacing those in the templates, so we can kind of pick those up too and implement them when we're ready, and have like a date or new or some sort of way to pick the see it.
Yeah, that's a good thought, Stephen.
Would be cool. Yeah.
Chip, Ben, you want to comment on that at all?
It's certainly adding a new tag to new community templates that we create. I think that is a good idea. Obviously, that takes a little bit of development time to do, which is why we're right now using the Discord server as the way to get there as quickly as possible. Ben puts those rule definitions there. I know Ben is creating new rule templates to go along with that. But Stephen, it's a good idea. We can add a new piece. We're just going to want to do it in such a way that that new tag drops off automatically after, let's say, 30 days or something. And that's going to take a little bit of coding, but it's something that we can add into our project backlog.
Yeah, I was able to find, I didn't realize the some of the changes in the Unify statuses, and I had to update several of my rules to use the kind of Unify v3 examples that you guys made available, which was good. And but I had to search for them, or was able to see them in the list there. But yeah, it's a great way to kind of see how to use it.
Yep, great suggestion. Any other questions for Amanda? Well, Stephen, you kind of gave us a great segue then to bring Adam into the call. We're going to be focusing most of the rest of today's call around specifically Unify. The new things are in Unify. Maybe lots of questions, and Stephen, I would absolutely ask you to stay engaged with Adam and ask questions directly about how you can use Unify functionality with Respond. But let's turn that over to Adam.
Ooh, hopefully I have sharing permission. Oh, I do. Cool. All right. So I wanted to throw some stuff up on the screen here quickly to kind of start talking about things. And then my guess is that y'all have some good questions for me shortly thereafter. So let's see. Oh, I upgraded my Mac today. Hopefully I have screen sharing and it actually works. Y'all see SaaS Alerts here?
We see your email.
We see your inbox.
Awesome. That's great. I love it when that happens. All right. Flipping there. Where is my stuff? Let's see. It's funny. I selected the Google Chrome SaaS Alerts.
You did have it at the end, and then you turned off sharing.
Datto EDR that was sharing, yeah.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, so I'm clicking Google Chrome SaaS Alerts.
There we go.
There we go.
That's so weird. All right. Well, welcome back. All right. So I wanted to roll through some Unify stuff. And I see a lot of the same questions coming through the support team over and over and over again, which anytime I see the same stuff happening over again, I have to point the finger at myself. It's either documentation or UI usually, or just bad communication on the way out. So I'm hoping we can kind of short circuit some of those things today. So I built this, and I am not a graphic artist. Can you see this image? Or am I still alerts? Okay, yes. Trying to get the whole Zoom, Google Meet, Teams, like they all act differently. So I built this very quickly before the call with a hope that it helps explain a little more on how the different devices are thought of from inside Unify, and this image might make it a little easier. So if we're starting on the far left of this, we're on the unknown or unmanaged unknown side. And then as we move to the right, we're getting more certain and effectively more secure, I guess is a good way to say it. So on the left-hand side, when we have a device, or sorry, when we have an event that comes in, and we do the comparison that we do, and I'll talk a little bit about that here shortly. And we take, the IP address and the OS and an Entra device ID potentially, and we look inside Unify. We're trying to surface a device from Unify that says, hey, based on the data that's from your RMM and the data that we saw in this event, we have a certainty or a level of certainty that this device is one that's in your RMM. And so when we do that initial lookup, if we look into Unify and we find no devices that have the IP address, the OS, and the other things that we're doing matching, we tag that as an unmanaged unknown device. And, a lot of times that's just somebody's BYOD. It's somebody's home computer. You're not running an agent on it. It's not in your RMM. So initially you're like, oh my gosh, it's an unknown device. That's bad. We should block it. And I would argue that no, you shouldn't. This is just a piece of information that you can use along your travels, potentially in Respond to enhance an existing Respond rule, that you should use it that way. I would not just wholesale create a Respond rule that just says if it's unknown, block it. Because there are a lot more unknown unmanaged devices than there are known, because you all know your clients are not deploying your RMM agents on everything. All right, so that's the first piece. Now, as we move right, and we look towards this first kind of line that I put here, the delineation on this line is on the left side. It's not in RMM. It's not in your Unify. As we hop this line, this means that when we evaluated the event, we now are seeing a device inside Unify that matches with a decent level of certainty, 50% or greater. And that's what I have been calling managed known devices. And so then the first kind of level of that managed known device is one that's called an unmapped device. And so again, this means we did find that computer or that device inside Unify, but it just has not been mapped to an account or a set of accounts. And I think, and I've been posing this to Chip, and we've been arguing and bantering a little bit about it, is that that's good enough in my world. Chip would like to disagree for all kinds of reasons, and as I move forward, we'll highlight his reasons. But for me personally, and if an event happens in Microsoft, for instance, and then we look it up in Unify and we find an RMM managed device that's in Unify that matches, I have a level of safety or a level of confidence, or at least I've de-risked that because I know I have an RMM agent on it. So this middle column here basically is we found a device, but it's not mapped to anyone. And inside the UI, and I'll show you what that looks like, you'll get this here, which is the little person with a question, which is basically saying, hey, we did the calculation. We compared this particular Slack event with this Ninja One device, and with a level of certainty, it's there, but it's not mapped. And so that's the icon that you'll see here and the type of filter that you'll see for this middle column. All right, I'll pause there because I just threw a ton of information. Questions, comments, thoughts before I keep moving to the right on this chart? All right, move. Oh, Andy, go ahead.
So we're able to create tickets around unmapped devices in our RMM or our PSA based on this with Unify now? Because I see
No.
this as housekeeping that needs to be done.
You could make a Respond rule that looked for this particular status, and you could create tickets with a medium level, for instance, that would go into your PSA. I wouldn't want to be your tech. I feel like that would be really annoying.
Okay, but what if that was a policy that we wanted to implement? Why wouldn't we not do this automatically from Unify? In other words,
you could. Yeah.
Okay.
So in Unify, there is an automation setting, and I will talk about that. That's a good tee up to have it jump from the unmapped to kind of the mapped side of this chart. We do have an automation section, and I'll show you that now. So inside Unify, actually, I'll back up first. I'll show you what it looks like to map it manually, and then we'll show you the automation. So if I come in on the left-hand side to Unify here, and I go to unmapped, and you select, an organization or all of your organizations, and I hit retrieve suggested accounts, I'm going to have a list of all of the devices that are unmapped right now. And we're going to show you a couple things. So most importantly is this confidence number and the potential account or accounts over here. So if I just hover over this, you're going to see a little bit of the calculation that we did to determine why this got to a 50% confidence rating and why this particular account was the one that was recommended. At that point, I can just hit this little button right here, and I'm going to map it immediately. Or I can hit this little button here, and it brings up this mapping tool where I might say, you know what, I want to see everything for this computer, and it looks like this is the only device that makes sense. And I could slide that over, and I've effectively mapped this device now. And so this is how you manually do it, either hitting this button or by editing this one. However, that's a lot of work for folks that have hundreds or thousands of devices, which is why we built the automation tool. And inside this automation tool, we have the ability to say, hey, listen, if it's over, say, 65%, I just want you to go ahead and map it for me. And you can go ahead and do that, and that'll rip through most of the mapping that needs to happen. Also, we have a run what if, which I don't think I have any data in here to be able to do that, but you can play with these settings up here, hit run what if, and it's actually going to show you what it would have done had this automation run on its normal scheduler. So this is how you move it basically from this middle column here, and you hop this line to now a mapped device. I did see a question in the comments here.
I think that's worth you reading right now, Adam. It's pretty much in context.
So a common issue we are seeing with Unify is the event analysis shows a near 100% match to a device for an event in multiple cases, but the device in Unify is unmapped with far less than 100%, so low that a 65% automation won't kick in despite being near 100% in the events. So what's the best way to say this? I don't know exactly your specific situation. So I would not know. I would say log a support ticket for your specific thing. But generality wise, the way that we do that comparison is really the same algorithm. But the difference is the amount of history that we have on one side of it versus the other. So if we're looking on the analysis side of the screen, and we score this, let's say, based on your question here, Billy, is let's say we hit 100% here. The reason that this one hits 100% is because at the moment in time, we took all of the data from the particular event and compared it through to a single device on the right side, basically, the Unify side. And so we're able to say, hey, 100% certainty, which is usually an IP OS and an Entra device ID will get you up over 100%. The flip side, though, if I look at the other direction, which is this way, and so the way that we come up with these confidence levels, it's the same algorithm, but it's done a little differently. Rather than you having a single event and you're just trying to pick a device that has that data, we're taking the device's data and we're looking through millions, literally millions of events over the last 30 days. And like if we pull 1 million events that have the same IP and the same OS, some of those people could be a corporate office where you've got 50 computers that are all the same OS, the same IP address, the same, all of this stuff. And so we're calculating literally each one of those events against all of the devices, and we're coming up with a confidence level. And when there's lots of events and lots of devices that all match the same IP, OS, and some other stuff, it's hard for us to pinpoint it with the same level of accuracy as we do from the other side when we're starting from the event side looking into devices. And that's like a really like big explanation for somebody who understands the internals of the algo. Chip, do you think I did okay on explaining that?
I think so, but I understand the topic,
Yeah.
so maybe Billy can ask or can help us out by commenting on whether or not your explanation made sense. Either in the chat, Billy, or if you'd like to join the
I think
conversation, please
maybe,
feel free.
yeah, I mean, go ahead and come off mute. Yeah, I think the difference is I'm looking on the recommendation of the device to the account side. I'm kind of pulling needles out of haystacks, and it's less accurate on the event side where I'm like literally spearfishing, sort of, so to speak, and I know what I'm looking for.
Yes, I'm happy to chime in.
Cool.
So just so you're aware, we are a relatively new customer. We've been on maybe 2 weeks now. So what we're seeing is obviously we don't have that 30-day look back of events, but we are seeing a large number of machines that are showing unmapped, but the analysis knows about it. Near
Unmapped.
100% in almost every instance, all of those logs are essentially near 100%, but Unify either lags behind substantially or it just never ends up mapping based on what we can see.
Good thought. So if you would, Billy, go ahead and log a support ticket. Say you want to talk to me, and I'd love to do a remote support session and just see whether this is a historical thing, a little bit better training thing, or whether we have something wrong. It's
Okay.
not entirely out of reason that there's a bug or you've got some sort of edge case that I need to look at.
Will do.
Cool. All right, I have other stuff in here now too. Anyone in particular I should run, or should I just roll right down here? I got Stephen King here. So I might remove unmapped from outside a location blocking rule. It sends like, yes, definitely. Unmapped would be bad. Well, maybe bad. Depends on if your chip's version of security or my version of most, good enough security. If you're doing response,
right, our concept is if they brought their device, their corporate device, and signed in somewhere, they're not going to be, blocked per se. But if they, try to, register a new device, that would alarm.
Yeah. So unmapped would tell you that it's an RMM device, but you have not mapped it to a user or a set of users yet. And, again, there's a level of certainty there that the RMM agent is existing and it's inside your management purview. If you're using to lock things out, I think that would be heavy-handed. If you have a policy at an organization that you're managing where it really truly is, you're not allowed to work from any computer other than your personal computer that was assigned to you, then that unmapped one might make sense. Or you could do the automation that I talked about, or you could do what Andy's doing, which is you could flag a service ticket for every single unmanaged or unmapped device that exists at that company.
Our example was the clients wanted to know for about non-compliance. So if they traveled with their corporate device, and so we set up an SMS, like a Google voice account that we can direct things to, and set up a rule that will let them know when something mapped goes out of location too. So
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause on the questions real quick. I want to roll all the way to the far end of this chart, and then I'm going to circle back around and answer the questions because I hate to leave the kind of the discussion all from completing. So we talked about the unmanaged unknown, no RMA agent or not enough data for us to be able to pick it out of Unify. That middle one here again is we found the device inside Unify. We're with a level of certainty, but that device is not mapped or associated to anyone. And then as we move to the right, these icons probably don't mean a lot to you, but I will explain what they are. These are what you're ultimately going to see in our interface. So moving over to the right now this is a device that is in the RMM and that is mapped to an account, but it is not the account that you actually mapped it to that performed the activity. So what that would look like is here. So this is the mapped to another account. Okay, so this is where the user on this particular event was Adam at SaaS Alerts. And we found the computer with a 67% certainty based on the comparison we did. But this computer is actually mapped to a different user or different account. So again, there's a level of certainty that we know that this is a known managed computer, but this person is now potentially using somebody else's computer. And so that, again, that comes to a policy decision on you all. You know, if this was a CFO, an account, this might be something that you would actually want to flag with a respond rule or elevate with a respond rule, because you now have a person who's using somebody else's computer. Now, as we move further right, we have the idea of shared devices. So you have the ability to associate multiple accounts with a single device. The best way to explain this one would be like an RDS box or a conference room computer, for instance, where there's lots of people who will be using them. This one here indicates that it is a shared device. We found the device in Unify with a level of certainty, but the user who just used it is not included in the account list. So that would be, and I don't know that I have an instance of that particular one, but it's the same one as this. We found the computer. It's just the user who just used it isn't in the mapping list. And so that is the next one. And then as we get further to the right on the known kind of more certain, more secure score, is we now have a shared device where the user is in the list. So I'm in the list of the RDS users. I performed an event, and that event picked up that computer, and I'm the right person. And then as you go further to the right, this is a one account mapped to a single device, and we found that the event happened on the device, and that user is the only user that's mapped to that device. Everybody catch that now? So as we go to the right, we're more certain. Now, I actually posed to Chip, I think it was about a month ago now, Chip. It's like, why do we even do this mapping thing, right? Like, isn't just knowing it is in the RMM, isn't that good enough? Like, I'm good with that. And then he brought up, you know, the CFO or the dev team or where we really truly need to have the understanding that the person is really using the person's computer. And I think there definitely is a need for that. But I posed the question again of like, maybe we just emphasize the mapping piece of this. And you can click, I'm an advanced user, and then you can go in and choose your mappings how you want. I don't know that we ever settled on one way or another to do that, other than, hey, wouldn't you rather me build new product connections and integrations than play with this UI thing and make it less important to map? But
we can address that, Adam, and I'm happy to you know, we always love to get feedback from this crew. So I'll offer the counter argument to your suggestion, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
The general counter argument is that there's always a tension between security and availability, right? You know, if we really wanted everything to be secure, all of our computers would be air gapped and no one could do anything of value with them on the internet. Well, obviously, we're not going to do that. For me, device information is a very good both qualifier and disqualifier for when you have a potential compromise event. And therefore, I think we have to make at least the possibility that it's as tight as it can possibly be. And Adam, you and your team on the MSP tool side have, in my opinion, you know, very creatively built a machine learning fuzzy logic algorithm that allows for the partner to select the confidence interval that is right for them. So if somebody wants to say, look, I'm happy at 50%, just map it for me automatically, then they can do that. And for me, if I were still running an MSP, I wouldn't be willing to do that for less than, let's say, a 75% confidence interval. you guys all know me by now. I'm kind of an ultra paranoid sort of guy, right? I would rather take more time in configuration up front and have, even a tenth of a percent slightly lower risk of a compromise on the back. But everyone has to balance the operational challenges that you have when you're highly customizing a tool against your overall operational efficiency. And I get that. So that's my soapbox. I would actually love to hear from as many people as want to join the conversation about how they see those two sides of the argument.
I think one thing I just wanted to ask is, if we are only to provide the ability to tag a device as a shared device, right? I know in my situation, most of my clients, the services we provide are remote desktop services, Azure virtual desktops, and we know what those RDS servers or AVD hosts are, and those are shared devices, right? I don't think I can today go into my setup and actually into Unify and select a device and say, yep, this is a shared device, and anybody and everybody that has an account within Microsoft Entra ID can actually log into that device, right? Unless the algorithm picks it up and says, okay, these users logged in, and this is the level of confidence, and then I move them to the right and make it a shared device, one by one.
I think what you just described, KK, is this unmapped. So effectively,
It's effectively low risk. That's what I put in the chat. If we can kind of distill it a little bit, that might make it easier to use.
Yeah, so unmapped means, KK, that we saw the device, it has an agent on it, and we paired the event to that device, and we have a level of confidence that that happened. By saying, like, I want everybody in the organization to use it, that's really what unmapped is. You're saying it's a device, I see it in the RMM, I'm just not going to do the effort to map the device to a bunch of users because effectively it's an organization device. That is the, kind of lazy way to do it. And, the other option is that you can go to a device and it would be something you'd have to do pretty regularly, but you could, literally, if there was 50 or 100 accounts over here, you could slide all of them over, and that effectively makes it a shared device as well.
Right, and see, that's what you just did was, right, I have to wait for the data to gather and then go to it, revisit it, and move those people from the left to the right to make it a shared device. Instead, at the device level, I know which devices are shared devices, right? So I simply say, yeah, this is a shared device. It doesn't matter how many people have logged in or may log in going forward, right? And you mentioned unmapped, right? So then what's the real difference between unmapped and shared, right?
The only difference with unmapped is you have not told us that this is the list of accounts that you want to see on this device.
So
go ahead, Chip.
Yeah, Adam, just let me see if I can distill KK's comment. And it sounds to me like it's an enhancement request, and it sounds to me like one we could actually affect relatively easily. KK, what you're saying is you want to select a device that you would know is associated with a tenant and just say everybody in this tenant automatically can touch that device, right?
So let me ask you the flip side. KK, what would you do if you saw, I guess in Unify, we don't do anything with events or alerts at all with the Unify data. You have to pair it with Respond to actually have it do something. So there isn't a Respond rule that we could create that I know of that would act on somebody using the device that's not inside your tenant, because the reality is they wouldn't be in, like, the activity wouldn't actually happen. Like, we wouldn't see the activity. We don't look at the device and then go, was the user the right user? We look at the activity and go, did it happen on a known device? So I think even if we did that enhancement, I don't know that it would give you any benefit above and beyond the unmapped, which in my world, and the argument that I was having with Chip is maybe it's just a matter of undoing, you have a checkbox that says, I want to run non-advanced mode, and unmapped just turns into known. right?
I think
And
that's
then
what it is, right? Because when you look at it, when you do the analysis, right, and all you're seeing is yellow, 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 right? Or orange, as the case may be, right? Versus green, right?
yeah,
You do
it looks
have
scary.
eyes on it, right? You do have to, look at what does that question mark mean. Of course, once you've been doing this for a while, yes, you may get it, and you're like, okay, I understand what that really means. But for somebody who's just adopting the platform, I think it's a little bit of
Yeah,
an
it
extra.
looks scary. Yeah. So, and I think the UI piece that I was talking about is really I don't know, de-elevating this.
It's trying to demystify the scariness.
Yeah, exactly. And instead of saying unmapped, it might just be known device. And then like at that point, it doesn't make you freak out and think that there's something I need to do. Because the reality is unmapped in my world is known device and relatively safe.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
I mean, Adam, I'm okay with that as a like a next step back, as long as there is a proactive step for KK in this instance or any other MSP to make a determination that that's a known device, right? There's got to be a proactive action that obviously we can log, because KK, you run a pretty large organization, right? You're going to want an audit log for which one of the techs who works for you actually made that determination, especially if it turns up later on that that no device winds up being used in a compromise.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
KK, I have your other question in chat here, and it's interesting. What you posed is something that I had drawn up a while ago. I'll show you the chart that I didn't show you guys. I had kind of been mirroring out this unknown discovered device, which is kind of what you had put in the chat window of, if I know what the OS is, if I know what the IP address is, even though it doesn't have an RMM agent, I'd like to be able to tag it. And I actually started building out the UI. I don't even know if I can get to it, but I built out the UI for that feature set. Yeah, I can't find it right now. And it turned out that I was basically rebuilding what will eventually turn into power filters that Liron's team is building. So with power filters, eventually you'll be able to say things like, if you're from this ISP running iOS and it's KK, then we're pretty certain that it's his home, computer or whatever, his home device, and it's just unmanaged.
Right, right.
So
At
that's
least more than a couple of factors, right? Which point to this being a legit device, being used by that user, being used repeatedly over a period of time, right? So instead of that being unmanaged, unknown, and triggering off various rules, right? It can just become a little bit easier.
Okay, Andy, I saw your hand up for a while, and then I'm going to get back to the chat questions here because we are running out of time.
Right. My questions were around this. To summarize it, are we not really talking about authorized devices and confidential devices and authorized user accounts and confidential user accounts? If we were able to set those attributes, would this not become much more clear?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Is that are we
I'm
are we
basically
splitting
saying
hairs
this.
on the terminology?
No, I'm saying if we had these accounts are authorized to access these devices, and these devices can access these user accounts, this becomes a moot discussion at that point. And then if you said this is a confidential user account and it is mapped only to a confidential device, this then becomes really clear that if anyone else uses this, it's a bad thing, right? I'm just expressing, are we not saying this in a nutshell?
I think we are, Andy, but I think that's actually what Unify does. It doesn't
But we
use
have
that terminology.
we don't have a confidential attribute. We don't have a way to say Andy's account is confidential and can only be used on this set of confidential devices, whereas Adam.
Sure, we do. We do have
Okay.
that capability, Andy. You can
Okay.
map a device one-to-one to you as a user, and you can establish a respond rule that says if this account does anything and it's not from this machine, then block that action.
So here's where I'm going with this. Ultimately, this becomes a compliance type reporting capability. I'm now able to say these users are authorized to access these devices. This confidential user can only be accessed by this device. And then I'm able to report this back and it has real value to say, this is how we've set up your security with cloud accounts to physical devices.
I could see that.
Is that still the same thing? I'm basically saying this maps it really succinctly for the customer's perspective if you're looking to talk to a CISO or, you know, the executive team.
Yeah, I think you can do that right now with a respond rule. And what we have, it would just be a little more tedious and you'd have a lot more respond rules. I think what you're saying is being able to mark a user as this user can only use one-to-one mapped devices. And then in respond, you'd be able to say, you know, anybody who is supposed to be on a one-to-one mapping, if they fail, then we do something.
And it adds value to the relationship because we're now saying, look, we know we can confidentially protect your user accounts to specific devices. And this specific device in particular, it's not like you have someone inside. Remember, you guys back a year ago said, hey, we caught someone's espionage sending data out. This helps limit those types of situations.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Anyway, that was what coming up for me in this.
Okay. All right, I'm going to roll through real quick, and then I think we probably need to wrap. One question came in here about the incomplete device data. And so in order, and if you actually read the KB for Unify, like I built probably the longest document I've ever written, and I hope that it's clear. Maybe not, but it walks through exactly how we look for devices and when we tag them what. Incomplete device data, I get blown up the most on my thumbs down ratings. And unfortunately, it's the one thing I have zero control over. So when a provider, an event, you know, any SaaS provider creates an event, if it doesn't have either an intra device ID or an IP and an OS, we mark that as we don't have enough data to do the Unify calculation. And so when you see incomplete device data, it means that I don't have the data. So I didn't get an IP from Kaseya on this one. I didn't get a device name. I didn't get an operating system. Without those things, I don't know how I would possibly pull the device from Unify. I just can't. There's not enough data for me to even do a query in our database to find a device. So when you see that, you can give me a thumbs down all you want, but the reality is it's the provider that sent us the info, not having the data in there. And listen, sometimes it's Microsoft. You know, it's weird. Sometimes we get amazing data from Microsoft, and sometimes we just don't get enough. And it just is the way it works. So that's the stuff. I got a ton of questions here. I know I don't have time. If you really are hung up on something, I would say please email support, ask them the question. If they can't answer it, it's going to hit my desk regardless.
Adam, you got 7 minutes. You can cover it.
Okay. I didn't know if you guys wanted to wrap something up. All right, cool. Any particular one? It's hard to talk and read at the same time that anybody just wants to jump on or raise their hand. And all right, I got you, Enrique. You are on mute. Still can't hear you. It doesn't say you're on mute, but I see your lips moving.
Not yet. You got to try your other headset.
We'll let you know if we hear you.
I have a question that kind of the flip of Unify, and that is there?
Oh, wait, there's
Enrique's
Enrique.
back.
Hold on.
Enrique jumped you. All right, let's go.
Sorry. So we're getting alerts from our NAT gateway inside Azure Virtual Desktops out here in San Antonio. You're registering it as overseas IP address. Is there any, I think I had asked Ben in the Tuesday call, is there any way when you're doing that lookup to confirm if it's Microsoft's ASN and take a different route? Or no, it's a micro, doesn't mean it can't be bad, but you guys are tagging it as bad.
It might be bad. So I don't know if you want to take that, Chip, but we consume.
Yeah, I will take that.
Okay.
So we use two different third-party geolocation providers, and we combine their data stream and bring it into ours. And both of them provide threat actor scores along with their data. Microsoft's entire ASN comes up as a threat actor score, and that we really can't change that. We have, as part of power filters or whitelisting 2.0, the ability coming to allow you guys to just basically whitelist an ASN, regardless of what the threat score says, because we know that this provides trouble for a lot of folks. But we have to work around it. But I also want to clearly state that the problem is one of Microsoft's own making, is that Azure, as a product, Azure as a platform, is one of the #1 favorite launching points for hackers all over the globe. And Microsoft has essentially been tagged by every geolocation provider as a potential threat actor.
Okay. So I guess we could just whitelist our NAT IP address. It's just one. And then maybe in respond rules in the future, also act accordingly when you have the newer versions of that.
That would be one logical approach to it.
Thanks.
All
right. So I think, Adam, unless you see another question you want to address directly, Adam, we can kind of. You do or you don't?
I know. I said I don't see anything right now that I think needs to be that we have.
I had cut off Andy.
That's all right.
Oh yeah, we
said
do
enough.
go back to Andy. Sorry, Andy.
Well, my question was, we're really talking about mapping user accounts for a tenant that we manage to devices. I wanted to know, is there a flip to this? Could we find out if someone's using a tenant that we don't manage from a device that's managed, and have a good way of triggering that as another security opportunity?
That would be a bit of a challenge, because we, as we don't have an endpoint agent, and we are only monitoring for data that comes across from SaaS applications for accounts that we know about. So just, when you guys go through the process of connecting up one of the applications for an organization, we're ingesting all the account data there, but we don't hold over, sort of a wild card that says, all right, if there's any other account that uses a machine, we wouldn't see that. Not without
totally getting it. But it's come to mind that I'm not really checking, are they accessing tenants that they shouldn't be accessing based on a corporate policy, for example, right? Are they accessing other SaaS solutions? So
Chip, could we end up leveraging Unify based on the fact we're now monitoring EDRs?
The reason I was hedging, Jim, is because I can see a path to what Andy is talking about through that. I don't know how we're going to get there yet without really thinking it through and talking it through with Adam. I don't know how long it would take us.
But that would really make more valuable this solution.
Because, realistically, so, Data EDR is coming, S1 is coming. Eventually we'll have, a lot of the EDRs. So, and that basically nullifies the need for an agent.
Good.
It could. The problem is, Jim, to do what Andy's talking about, we actually have to be able to interject ourselves in the network stream and see credentials moving across on devices that are known to us, and then compare those credentials to what we know in our database. And let's say that, Andy is the hacker, and we're comparing his activity on that device to attempt to log into some other account, any other account.
Yeah.
Like personal accounts. That might actually be the case, right? It could be a personal account that we want to block.
Yeah. Yep. Well, Chip, Andy brought it up, so I didn't expect it to be easy.
Sorry, guys.
Well, let me make one final comment here. I hope everybody found, the back half of today's call with Adam useful. We've been talking about doing this for a while. Unify and the intersection between Unify and Respond is one of the most challenging parts of our product. Unify has the least uptake of any of our 4 main modules, being Manage, Respond, Reports, and Fortify. But we also think it has a lot of power and we want to see it grow. And Adam, I think more than anybody, loves getting feedback. You know, he's the only product owner on our side who asked for permission to put a thumbs up, thumb down button in his module. I think that sends a lot about how much he wants people's feedback and is willing to respond to that. So I would definitely encourage this group to continue to give him lots of feedback, and we'll continue to iterate it forward with more and better ideas. I think we got some good ones from KK today, and from others as well. So from Stephen
Yeah.
King. So we can, you know, we'll look at incorporating these things rolling on.
Yeah, and just to put numbers around that, because Billy just said he's surprised. Respond's got about 97, 96, 97% of our partners use Respond. About 80%, 85% are using Fortify. But only in contrast, about 36% are using Unify. But it is super powerful. Nobody else is doing a lot of what we're doing here. So we're just looking for feedback and ways to get better.
This is good, valuable feedback, by the way. And I will say, I don't think there's a real understanding of how Unify can really transform a tenant security model.
Yeah, it can change the game. Absolutely can change the game.
That's why we're doing this, and I think we're going to revisit this topic on future SASE calls, especially as Adam makes changes and reacts to some of the comments that he's getting from the team. Guys, I have to jump.
Yeah, me too.
At 2 o'clock waiting.
Thanks, everybody.
Great call. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.